we're going to explain how to refresh an Excel pivot table. There are several ways to do this, depending on your needs and how your data is set up. 1. The simplest method is to use the Refresh button. You'll find this in the Data tab on the ribbon, within the Connections group. Just click this button, and Excel will automatically update your pivot table with the latest data from your source. This is ideal for most situations where your data source hasn't changed significantly since the last refresh. 2. If your data source is an external file, like a text file or a database, you might need to manually refresh the connection. Go to the Data tab again and click on Connections. This will open a list of your data connections. Select the connection linked to your pivot table and click Properties. In the Properties window, you'll find an option to refresh the connection. This method is necessary if your external data source has been updated. You can choose to refresh only this specific connection or refresh all connections. 3. For scheduled refreshes, Excel offers powerful automation. Using the Data tab and Connections, you can set up a refresh schedule for your pivot tables. Select your connection and then click Properties again. Look for a tab usually labeled Definition or similar. It contains settings to automate the refresh process. You can set the pivot table to refresh at specific intervals, daily, hourly, or even more frequently, without manual intervention. This is perfect if your data updates regularly. 4. Sometimes you might have to refresh your data source itself before refreshing the pivot table. For example, if your pivot table relies on data from a query, you might need to rerun that query to update the data first before refreshing the pivot table. The exact steps depend on where your data is coming from: a database, a web service, or an Excel sheet. 5. Lastly, if none of the above work, it might be due to connection issues. Double-check the connection to your data source. Is it working properly? Is the file or database accessible? Are there any permissions issues preventing access? Troubleshooting connection problems is crucial before you start blaming the pivot table itself. Remember to save your workbook after refreshing your pivot table to ensure your changes are saved. Refreshing your pivot tables regularly keeps your reports accurate and up to date, allowing you to make informed decisions based on the latest data.